See what he can do in the midst of unbelievers, on the leading edge with his word, his power, his grace, and his mercy. For God's sakes, we're Lutheran. This is what we know.
Hey, what's going on, family? I'll be straight up. I'm very skeptical or tentative when it comes to making videos of this type, with this type of topics, these type of themes. Of course, I'm going to talk about Juneteenth. It's a very special moment for my African-American brothers. Like you know, I'm not African-American, but I'm still black. I still live in this country. I have African-American friends. Just want to be straight up, right? Because a lot of people would throw in my face, well, you're not an African-American. So, of course, I always have to make that little caveat to be, straight up honest. And I think most of you who have been listening to Wittenberg Project know that I'm not born in America. I still have a little accent, so there you go. But I'm always a little bit tentative about speaking about these subjects because, like I was discussing with, my buddy Lex, we've been friends for a long time. We've been doing this Wittenberg Project thing for a while now. And, one of the things that we don't want to do with this channel is to make it about just race stuff, to be about the complaining. Look, I tend to be, I don't like the look. I don't want to come across as a person that is always complaining or nagging or focusing on the negative stuff. To use more of a Christian language, to focus solely on the law. And that's precisely the way that I think we can approach this topic. Look, there's no denial that the law, history, just observation, sociology, whatever you want to call it, is very condemning. Okay, blacks, African Americans in this country have gone through hell, specifically from so-called churches, which it's kind of difficult calling them churches, or even Christians, individuals being Christians. I don't care, what they claim to be. It is hard to see them and respect the claim of them being Christians. And it's particularly difficult when it comes to the issue of Lutheranism. A lot of people from other traditions wanted to, Lex and I were talking about this the other day. People that come out of clearly shady foundations when it comes to the issue of black relations, treatment of minorities, them type of traditions. I'm talking, of course, Southern Baptist Convention, which is, in my opinion, the most egregious one and the largest, most influential Christian denomination in these United States, especially here in Kentucky, where we live. And then, of course, the history of Charles Wesley and others. It is undeniable. Like if you want to discuss that kind of issue, I don't have much time for you. I'm sorry. It's just, those are facts. It's just history. Anyone that lives here or doesn't live here and doesn't have a bias or some type of hatred to the fact that these things happened and want to poo-poo them, do them away, they don't want to face them, well, God bless you. Good luck to you. This is just history. It's American history. You just have to deal with it. I also don't, I'm kind of getting off the topic here, but I get annoyed when people say, well, I have no blame in this because, I was not around. I didn't do this personally. And the first thing that comes to mind is like, bro, do you celebrate Memorial Day? Do you celebrate 4th of July? Do you celebrate the achievements of your parents or the things, the goods, the house, the money, the inheritance that your parents gave you? Do you celebrate Veterans Day? You get the point. If you want to hold on to this foolish idea that because you were not actively participating in that, then in my opinion, you shouldn't celebrate none of these festivities, none of these national holidays, because you were not there. You did not fight these good fights. You didn't fight an independent fight. You didn't fight in a number of things. And so for you to pick and choose what what you want to inherit or enjoy or whatever the case may be from things of the past that your parents did or didn't do is kind of foolish. And then, of course, as Christians, we we have this little old fun tradition called Christianity, in which we reap the benefits, the blessings from a guy that died for all of us, right? Like he took unto himself things that he didn't do, and we reap the benefits of the things that we did not deserve. Like, Christians should be the last people arguing like this. Well, I was not involved, so I have nothing to do with it. Give me a break. So yeah, we can, like I said before, we can go through the law, right? We can we can debunk all of these reformed individuals that want to come to our side as Lutherans. They want to come to our world and judge us that that this is a white man tradition, which is one of the most ignorant claims that you can make. Like Father Luther, the beginning of this tradition, whatever you may say whatever about how Lutheranism has become a distinct or has gone in a different direction from the OG in different ways. We can talk about that later. In fact, I have a book that I just purchased and it speaks about that topic. But if you know a little bit about Lutheranism, and we made a video about this a couple years ago, speaking about how he went and met with black deacon and seeked his approval as far as the liturgy, certain doctrinal issues. So it is very evident that if you want to talk about the foundations, the beginnings of Lutheranism, or Luther himself, that there was no racial animosity. And I know a lot of people also argue that the Hitler thing and all of that stuff, which is of course orange and apples, and that's another topic. We can talk about that. We can talk about the fact that Reformed individuals, at least in America, and you can argue also over there in Europe, had a very elitist flavor, had a very arrogant nature to itself as far as feeling superior, that God has called us. And it's also theological. I was talking about this issue with Lex as far as how this Reformed Calvinist theology lends itself to the arrogance, to the elitism that that we were chosen and others were not, that we were predestined, others were not, the kind of the denial of the universality of the gospel. You can have all these theological debates, but there's no denial that you imbibe and you can perceive a certain attitude, a certain mojo or ethos is the word I was looking for, within the Reformed community. You may not notice it, you may not sniff it, but if you've been part of it, like I was, and then you come out, you can't help but notice this elitist, especially within the membership or the leadership of these traditions. You cannot deny it. You cannot deny the fact that still to this day, blacks are still, which are still within that tradition, are still complaining. They still have a ceiling. And we can talk about that. We can talk about Baptists. We can talk about Methodists, also some shady stuff with Wesley and some, there's books, articles about that. The tradition was like that. We can talk about Walther as well. Walther, who, father of the LCMS, when it came to racial stuff, kind of gave a blind eye, kind of distanced himself. Racism was all over America, so it is what it is. We can have those conversations, but I am not going to accept, and no Lutheran should accept, this idea, this claim that from the foundation of this tradition that we were racist. That's just ignorant. The average Lutheran is a girl, and it's a 19-year-old woman, girl, and it's black. Most Lutherans, there are countries in which has by far more Lutherans than many European countries, more than here, for example, like here in the United States. And so to make that claim is just, in my opinion, is just ignorant. To try to try to put us in the same level because you saw some issues, or you see some churches here in America that Lutheran churches that are very white, and you assume that because of that is because they're anti-black. You're just ignorant. You don't know the history of this tradition here, the persecution that we as Lutherans had, white Lutherans had, the number of initiatives or organizations that were entirely dedicated to impact the black community. So, that's law. We can talk about that. But I want to focus on something positive today, which is the simple fact that the gospel is about reconciliation. And the thing that has to be celebrated today is that I'll say you as African Americans, you are an inspiration. I'll tell you straight up. We have situations, and I wrote it up here, of at least two guys who observed the landscape, or as they said it, the rotten fruit of Christianity in this country. The first one is Louis Eugene Walcott, who as a young man left Christianity, and who later became Louis Farrakhan, who is anti-Semite, and you can say that he's racist towards whites. He's not very friendly to white people. And then you have guys like Malcolm X, who witnessed his black Baptist preacher father being lynched by white Christians because he was arguing for the rights of black people in this country. And so, why am I saying this? This should be more of the norm. If you think about it, look at yourself. I think about myself. Would I put up, if I was growing up as a Christian during those days, would Athanasius put up with that kind of treatment? I'll tell you, that would be a huge stumbling block. To a large degree, what these people did back then and what people are still doing now is blaspheming against God. It's a stumbling block to a lot of people. And to me, it is astounding that so many blacks, despite the persecution, in spite of being told, like my father, I'll tell you that story because, all of us have some personal stories, so I'll just share with you. We're not Americans, but we grew up in a country in which there were a lot of American bases. My mother grew up in an American base in our country, and I'll get some history here. We had what was called the silver roll and the gold roll. Gold roll was this idea that all the best neighborhoods, the best houses, the best supermarkets were for white American soldiers and their families who also work in the canal and stuff like that. They had the best homes. They had the best supermarkets, the best schools, the best facilities, the best meats would go to those supermarkets. And then there was the silver roll in which my mother grew up, right? My grandfather, who was Jamaican, came to work on the canal. That's where they were located. They were assigned these houses. So my mother would tell us that, the worst houses, the meat was not the best. We got, the second place or the cheap stuff that the other people didn't want. That's what they got. So she would sit me down and tell me these stories. And I'll never forget till the day I die, that when she was a young woman, she was in her 20s, she wanted to visit this church in this base called Balboa. Still to this day is still there. As a young man, I would go there before I came to this country, of course, and worship, and is now into the locals' hands and stuff. But she told me that she went to this church once to visit, and the second time she came to visit, of course, this is an all-white church, needless to say, they asked her very politely, with a very nice smile, ask her, you should probably just go and visit a church with people that look more like you, or something to that effect. And of course, you got the message, never returned again. And then my father, who was an engineer in the canal, he was sent here to do some, like courses and studies for, advanced stuff for the canal. And he was sent to Alabama, to all places. And, he's a Baptist. He's a deacon, or was a deacon back in the day. So very devoted Christian, and he felt, I need to go to some church and worship, of course, like a good Christian, and give him my tithes, my offerings and stuff. And he was stopped by a couple of deacons and the pastor, and they told him, hey, you may be interested in visiting that church over there, which of course was a majority black African-American church. So they pretty much told him, there's no space for you here. The gospel here is not for you. You need to go over there. And, we joke around about that experience, because if, we say to each other, like, I was trying to give them money. My dad, he had a great job, and we were trying to give this church money, and I guess they're not interested in black money. So whatever. So yes, it is personal, but I will never say that we experience half of the things that African-American brothers and sisters experience in this country. And so I commend you. I salute you, because what should be normal after going through those experiences is that you don't want to do anything else with this thing called Christianity. The normal thing is to just be filled with hate in your heart for people that treat you like this, won't even allow you to hear the gospel in their places. If in fact they do have the gospel, I would dispute it, but whatever. To see that your children are not allowed to come to certain neighborhoods, worship in certain houses of worship, and then to pretend like nothing is happening and this is all of that stuff. I salute you. I commend you. You are the real OG Americans of this country. There's nobody that represents a better belief in this nation, and a better belief, in my opinion, in my eyes, of perseverance, of real love, of still trying to fellowship with people that in some real ways still hate you and look at you as a lesser than or other. All the disrespect, all the decades of accumulated grievances. There is, in my view, no community, no group of people that represent what love, Christianity, reconciliation is all about more than our African-American brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to commend you. There is no way that I could look at history, read what I've read, remember the conversation that I've had, the testimonies of my parents, the testimonies of so many Baptist preachers that to this day I still talk to, my neighbors and stuff like that, and not say, hey, this is how you know that this is in part how I know that this religion is not about culture, it's not about just doing what mom and dad did, but that these people are truly led by the Spirit of God and are still believing in the promises of Christ. That in spite of all of this, you have remained faithful. In spite of the persecution, you don't need to go to Africa. You don't need to go. You can stay right here. the persecution, the burning of churches, the killing, the shootings in churches. One of the most demonic things you can ever see here is someone coming into your church and shooting it up. Is there a bigger manifestation of the demonic than that? I don't think so. That has to be the top echelon, in my view. Despite all of that, you still believe the message. You're still loving the neighbor. You're still leaving a space in your heart for reconciliation. That has to be commended. Happy Juneteenth. Thank you for your example. Thank you for example of love, of reconciliation, of believing in the gospel, of forgiveness. It really means something. It really means something. Because tough people are tough precisely because God has seen in you something which is of no value. Like, I can put my son, I can put my daughter through this because I know who you are. You are very special. And I just wanted to commend you, salute you for all of that, because we don't have to see beyond our family's tables, our dinner table, or beyond our parents, preachers, so many figures within the African American community. We don't have to look too far away. We don't have to read books and stuff like that. We can see them right here, right now. 4K, HD, whatever kind of TV you have, right there is the testimony of the power of the Holy Spirit and how the Spirit of God preserves till this day, guards our hearts from bitterness, from anger, from retaliation. That is the best example that you have. Anyway, Wittenberg Project, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day, and see you around. Bye-bye.